Picture a 5-seat luxury SUV that weighs the better part of 2.4 tons. It has a heated rear bench, real wood inlays if you want them, and enough boot space for a family holiday. And yet, when you plant your right foot, it fires from 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in the low 3-second range, faster than most sports cars from 10 years ago. 640 metric horsepower, a twin-turbo V8, carbon ceramic brakes larger than most family car wheels, and a badge on the tailgate that simply says RS. So the question we are going to answer today is a simple one, but the answer is more interesting than it looks. Is the 2026 Audi RS Q8 Performance the last great combustion-powered luxury SUV, or just proof that Audi still refuses to let go? To understand the RS Q8 Performance, you first have to understand where it sits in Audi's lineup. The Q8 itself arrived in 2018 as Audi's flagship SUV coupe. Think of it as the sportier, more aggressive sibling to the 7-seat Q7. Same underlying platform, but lower, wider, and unmistakably more dramatic. 2 years later, in 2020, Audi Sport released the RS Q8. That car took the standard Q8 formula and dropped in the same twin-turbo V8 shared with the Lamborghini Urus and the Porsche Cayenne Turbo. Overnight, Audi had a genuine super SUV in its showrooms. Now, for the 2026 model year, Audi has done what it has done many times before with its most successful RS cars. It has added the performance badge. In Audi's language, that word is not decorative. It is a signal that this is the sharpest, most powerful, most focused version of the car before its generational replacement arrives. This is the ceiling of the current combustion-powered Audi Sport lineup, and, some would argue, the ceiling of the entire luxury performance SUV segment. Let's talk about what the performance badge actually means in practice, because Audi has used it many times before. Look at the RS6 Performance, the RS7 Performance, or the previous RS Q8 Performance from 2022. Every one of those cars followed the same recipe: more power, sharper throttle mapping, firmer damping, a lighter, more aggressive attitude, but never a full redesign. The Performance is always the final, most focused evolution of an existing car. The sharpest knife in the drawer before the drawer is replaced. For the 2026 RS Q8 Performance, that recipe delivers a 4.0-liter twin-turbo V8 retuned to produce roughly 640 metric horsepower, or about 631 mechanical horsepower in old money. Peak torque climbs to around 850 Newton-meters. That is a genuine step up from the 600 PS of the standard RS Q8. Power is fed through an 8-speed Tiptronic automatic and Audi's Quattro all-wheel drive with a self-locking center differential. The 0 to 100 kilometers per hour run drops to around 3.6 seconds. And remember, this car weighs the better part of 2.5 tons. Top speed is unlocked with the optional dynamic package, plus to a full 305 kilometers per hour. Numbers that would have been supercar territory not that long ago, delivered by something you could take your kids to school in. Now let's talk about the engine, because this is not just any V8. Internally, Volkswagen Group engineers call it the EA85, a 4.0-liter biturbo V8 that is arguably one of the last serious combustion engines being actively developed anywhere inside the group. And it is not just an Audi engine. The same basic architecture, differently tuned, powers the Lamborghini Urus, the Porsche Cayenne Turbo, the Bentley Continental, and the Panamera Turbo. Each brand tunes it to its own personality, but the shared DNA means Audi's engineers are building on a platform that has been sharpened by some of the most demanding manufacturers in the world. To keep it civilized in daily driving, Audi uses cylinder-on-demand technology, which deactivates 4 of the 8 cylinders under light load. A mild hybrid 48-volt system smooths out the start-stop function and softens turbo response. Real-world fuel economy in a 2.4-ton SUV with 640 PS is never going to be miraculous, but it is not completely catastrophic either. And here is the wider context worth remembering. With EU emissions regulations tightening and Audi committed to a fully electric future, this performance version is widely understood to be one of the final flagship expressions of this V8 platform. Every launch of it now carries a distinctly last hurrah energy. Let's move to the chassis, because this is where the RS Q8 performance really justifies its price. Underneath sits Audi's adaptive air suspension, offering 5 ride height settings from lowered sport mode to a raised setting for rougher surfaces. On top of that, the performance uses electromechanical active roll stabilization, powered by the 48-volt system, which keeps a 2,300+ kilogram SUV remarkably flat through corners. It genuinely does not lean like a 2.5-ton vehicle should. All-wheel steering is standard. At low speeds, the rear wheels turn opposite to the fronts, tightening the turning circle and making tight car parks feel almost small. Car easy. At high speeds, the rear wheels turn slightly with the fronts, giving the car remarkable stability in fast sweeping bends. A sport differential on the rear axle sends torque left or right through corners, sharpening the way the car rotates. And then there are the brakes. Carbon ceramic discs are standard on the performance variant, 440 millimeters across at the front, clamped by 10-piston calipers. Those are among the largest brakes ever fitted to any production car, full stop. There is also a serious Nürburgring story here. At launch, the previous RS Q8 held the SUV lap record around the Nordschleife at approximately 7 minutes and 42 seconds. When the performance version arrived, it lowered that benchmark again, briefly holding the title of fastest production SUV around one of the most demanding racetracks on Earth. On the outside, the 2026 update is subtle but focused. Audi has revised the front end with a redesigned single-frame grille, matte carbon or gloss black depending on trim. New LED matrix headlights with adaptive high beam replace the previous units, and the lower intakes have been reshaped for improved cooling and a more purposeful stance. Look closely, and you will spot distinct performance-specific badging on the front wings and on the tailgate. Wheels start at 22 inches as standard, with optional 23-inch forged designs available in matte bronze or matte black. A titanium exhaust system is available as an option. It saves roughly 8 kilograms at the rear of the car and produces a noticeably richer, deeper V8 note than the standard steel exhaust. Audi has also expanded the color range for 2026, adding matte Chronos Gray and the Pearl Effect Sebring Black to the palette. But the overall proportions of the car are unchanged. This is still the same wide, low-slung coupe SUV silhouette that arrived back in 2018. Refined, not reinvented. And honestly, that is fine. The shape was right the first time. Step inside, and the performance carries forward Audi's dual-screen MMI touch response cabin. A 12.3-inch digital cockpit sits behind the steering wheel. A 10.1-inch upper display handles infotainment, and an 8.6-inch lower display manages climate control and shortcuts. The 2026 model brings Audi's latest MMI infotainment generation with a faster processor, sharper native graphics, and improved voice control that now handles genuinely natural conversational commands rather than rigid preset phrases. RSE-specific instrument layouts give the driver a proper tachometer flanked by real-time torque, boost pressure, and G-force readouts. The optional Bang & Olufsen 3D advanced sound system runs 23 speakers, including headrest tweeters in the front seats. Standard upholstery is Valcona leather with honeycomb stitching. Options include an Alcantara steering wheel, exposed carbon inlays across the dash and center console, and a Dynamica microfiber headliner that transforms the ambience of the cabin. And here is the RSQ8's practical trump card that people often forget. The rear seats are genuinely usable for adults. That sounds obvious, but many of its direct rivals treat the back seat as an afterthought. In the RSQ8 Performance, 4 grown-ups can travel in genuine comfort, and that matters more in daily use than any lap time. Which brings us to the competition, and this is a genuinely crowded field. On the combustion side, you have the BMW X6 competition, the Mercedes-AMG GLE 63S Coupe, the Porsche Cayenne Turbo GT, the Aston Martin DBX 707, and of course the Lamborghini Urus SE. Each has a different personality. The Cayenne Turbo GT is arguably the sharpest driver's tool in the segment, the closest thing to a proper sports car on stilts. The DBX 707 has more raw horsepower on paper and carries the Aston Martin badge. The Urus is the loudest, the most theatrical, and the most expensive, where the RSQ8 Performance wins is in the overall package. Everyday usability, interior quality, all-weather capability from Audi's Quattro system, and most importantly, price to performance. It undercuts the Urus by an enormous margin, despite sharing much of the same underlying hardware. Electric competition is beginning to arrive too. The Lotus Eletre R, the all-new electric Porsche Cayenne coming for 2026, the BMW iX Performance variants. But none of those cars yet match the RSQ8 Performance's specific blend of long-distance range, V8 soundtrack, and refined luxury at motorway cruising speeds. As for pricing, expect starting figures around 175,000 euros in Germany, well over 150,000 US dollars in North America, and comfortably north of 140,000 pounds in the United Kingdom before you touch the options list. And on this car, the options list is very tempting. So why does this specific car matter right now? Because it sits at a historically loaded moment in the automotive industry. Combustion-powered flagship SUVs are being quietly retired across the entire luxury market. Audi has publicly committed to launching only fully electric models from 2026 onwards, with combustion versions phased out from its lineup by around 2033. That means the 2026 RSQ8 Performance is one of the last new petrol-powered RS SUVs that Audi will ever launch under its current product strategy. Full stop. There is also a very real collector angle worth thinking about. Look at what has happened to low-mileage examples of previous performance-badged Audi RS cars, the RS4 B7, the RS5 Sportback Performance, the RS6 C7 Performance. All of them have held their values remarkably well, and in some cases have started to climb. There is a reasonable argument that in 10 years' time, we will look back on the RSQ8 Performance as the peak of combustion-era Q8 development, the last, best expression of an era. Whether or not you personally would buy one is almost beside the point. This car is a statement about what a modern super SUV can still be before the industry flips the switch to full electrification. Which brings us back to the question we started with. Is the 2026 RSQ8 Performance really the most powerful luxury SUV? Or is it just the loudest goodbye? The honest answer is that it is both, and it needs to be both. On raw numbers alone, yes, there are cars that edge it. The Ferrari Purosangue makes more horsepower. The Aston Martin DBX 707 pulls slightly harder on paper, but on the specific brief that matters, a daily usable 5-seat, all-weather luxury-first super SUV, nothing quite matches the RSQ8 Performance's balance. It is not the last word in outright acceleration. It is the last word in a certain kind of complete package. A car that can do the school run in the morning, tour the Autobahn at 300 kilometers per hour in the afternoon and set a top 10 SUV lap time at the Nürburgring the same weekend. So here is the takeaway. The 2026 Audi RS Q8 Performance is not just the fastest Audi SUV ever built. It is the closing chapter of a story the industry is about to stop telling. If you enjoyed this deep dive, hit like, subscribe for more coverage of the cars that matter right now, and let us know in the comments. If you had to choose, would you take the RS Q8 Performance, the Porsche Cayenne Turbo GT, or the Lamborghini Urus? Same engine, three completely different arguments. Next time, we are staying with this family and taking a much closer look at the engine that makes all three of these cars possible. The Volkswagen Group's EA825 V8, a full retrospective on one of the last great combustion engines. See you then.